Hello lovely people, it's Nicola back in the Stitches and Slapdashery sewing room, and I can't tell you how pleased I am to be back in my sewing room. Just got back from 2 weeks on holiday, which was mostly enjoyable, a little bit sad because of the funeral, my mum's funeral, but it went well. We got it done. We got her all packed away and said goodbye to. That sounds funny, doesn't it? And I even brought back a little itty bitty container with some of her ashes in. And I found my dad's ashes as well. I wasn't sure where I'd put them, and I was hunting around everywhere for them today. And I eventually thought, wait, it's the little Tupperware container that they were in is probably in with all the old photos under the stairs, and that's where they were. So I hope you guys are doing well. Hope you're enjoying your spring if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, or autumn or fall if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. Did I say that the right way around? I won't know until I edit. Spring if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, or fall/autumn if you're in the Southern Hemisphere. That's right. Yes. Being away for 2 weeks, you can really notice the changes here. My back garden looks beautifully green. The grass has been growing like crazy. There are a million dandelions in the grass, but that's okay. We leave the dandelions, we do not weed. They're good for the bees. And they look pretty. The forsythia is out. Even the lilac came out while we were away. So there's lots of lovely purple blossom on there. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if the kids actually watered my plants, my house plants, while I was gone. And most of them look fine because a lot of them are cacti anyway, and they don't really need a lot of attention. But my little mimosa plant, which is very delicate, looks like it didn't get any water at all while I was gone, and it's looking a little bit sad. So I'm hoping I can revive it. But I'm very excited to say that the orchids that I was given a few months ago and that had leaves but no flowers, and I wasn't sure if they were ever going to flower for me, they've all got new growth on. One of them, the flower stem, is this long now, and there was nothing there 2 weeks ago. That's really exciting. I have no idea what colour the flowers are going to be or anything. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they look like when they finally bloom. Wonderful. The trip back went fairly smoothly. There was a little bit of delay here and there with the flights, but yeah, it was just long and boring and tiring as usual, which is what you want, right? You really want it to be uneventful, because anything else could be pretty serious. I watched 4 movies on that long flight. I don't know if it was 8 or 9 hours or whatever. I didn't do the math in the end. But from door to door, it's probably about 22 hours total with 3 flights and the waiting in between, you know. So yeah, I watched that movie about Bob Dylan, and I can't remember what it's called. And I watched Wicked, and I watched Here, which is that weird one with Tom Hanks in it, which looks like it's mostly AI, because you see a very young Tom Hanks in it. And as we all know, he's at least, 65, 70 now. And what was the other one? Can't remember now. Yeah, 4 movies. That was a record for me, because I didn't actually do any crocheting or anything else on the plane. And my physical book that I had taken with me, I finished while I was over there, and I left for my sister to read. So we got back at a reasonable time last night, and then we were chatting away with the boys, finding out what's been going on here in the last 2 weeks. We went to bed about 11 o'clock, and so nice to be back in our own bed. We do love our own bed. It's just a futon, but you know, there's nothing like sinking into your own bed at the end of a long trip, or even a short trip, and just going, this feels so nice. Talking of what's been happening while we've been gone, of course, Canada had an election, and Mark Carney continued as Prime Minister. And that's all I'm going to say about that, because, you know, I mean, I'm pleased about that, but I'm not going to get into politics any more than I have to, because whilst I have been paying more attention to politics, in the last few months. I try not to focus on it too much, because a lot of it's kind of depressing, isn't it? The other major thing that happened while we were away, just before we came back, was a really horrible incident in Vancouver. And I just wanted to say how shocked we were and heartbroken, really, because somebody drove a car into a street where they had food vendors and things for a Filipino festival. And last we heard, at least 11 people had died and many more injured, and that is absolutely awful. So my heart went out to them for sure. So I'm very grateful to be home and safe, and that my kids are all home and safe. I have a bit of free-floating anxiety in the pit of my stomach today, and I'm not 100% sure what it is, but I think now that I'm home, I'm just going back to the usual things that bug me, which is worrying about my kids and things that are happening in their lives. But I'm not worried about going back to work tomorrow, because I'm actually looking forward to it. I actually did miss it a bit while I was gone. And yeah, not really worrying about anything at home, apart from the kids. I'm looking forward to getting back into sewing something. Ali of Little Drops of Wonderful is once again partnering up with Claudia of Crochet Luna for the Dodgy Bag Make-Along this year. Very exciting. So there will have to be some bag making in the next 4 or 5 weeks, I think it is. I think it goes till the 7th of June. So beginning of May to the 7th of June, something like that. And there will have to be some dodgy bag making for sure. One of the things I brought back with me from Jersey was a pile of photographs of my kids in the early years, because my sister had them, because I had sent them to my mum years ago, way back before the advent of digital photographs. Of course, we would take photos. Well, it was probably partly initially with a manual camera, but eventually like a digital camera. But before we actually took pictures on our phones, we had all these photos. We would get them printed, 3 sets of them, one for us, one for the in-laws, and one for my parents. And so there was a whole set of early photographs of when the kids were kids. I mean, they're adults now. And so rather than have them, I don't know, end up in the trash or whatever, my sister didn't really want to keep them. I brought them home. So I brought back this pack of photographs that weighed probably a pound. And also a scrapbook from when I was a child. I'll have to get some pictures out of it maybe, and put them on maybe this blog or another, this vlog or another vlog. Just to give you a laugh. Of some of my childhood pictures, maybe some of my report cards from my primary school. Nicola should apply herself better. I got very good grades at spelling and English. And then there was a little report. There was a report from secondary school about my needlework. I don't remember seeing anything about the cookery side of things, but definitely there was a needlework grade. I was pretty mediocre, a pretty mediocre student, I have to say, at secondary school. I was just saying that the other day to Mr. Stitches, and then of course I read these report cards and I was like, well, that just proves it, doesn't it? Yes, it mostly said, must apply herself more, must do better revision for exams. She's not really making as much effort as she should. But what the heck, that was so many years ago, right? It's just funny to look back on now. One of the things I brought back was this rather lovely seahorse journal cover, which I had made. I ended up sending it to my mum. And I was hoping that she would put a notebook inside it and use it as a journal cover. She never did. I think she rarely used anything I made her. The only thing she really used was a piece of fabric that I sent her to keep her hair dye off the recliner at the care home. And my sister had suggested I make one, and I did. And it was just a rectangle of fabric, and it was super simple. That she used. So I told my sister to donate that to charity store if it was still good, because I didn't want it back. The crochet that I did in Jersey, there was the beanie and the fingerless mitts in the Serta jewel spun, and the Lion brand Feels Like Bliss, the little hand warmers that I showed you last time, and the, what was it? Headband, that's right. Get your brain on, Nicola. I left those there because I didn't want to carry them back home. And I decided that my sister could figure out what to do with them. I doubt she'll wear them herself. She's welcome to them, or she can pass them on to someone she knows, or she can put them in a thrift shop. Doesn't really matter, as long as somebody gets some use out of them. So once I had made those, it got to the last couple of days of the holiday, and I had this ball. Ooh, taking that yarn out is making me want to sneeze now. Okay, that was 2 sneezes. We'll edit those out. So the Feels Like a Dream is what I'm using now, and I started to crochet things up with it, but rather than leave them behind and not be able to talk about them on camera, I brought them back with me. So I started a second thing. Let me just show you the first thing. Now, this is the Feels Like a Dream, and again I used the 7mm hook because it's the light blue one, and it just looks nice when you're working with light blue yarn to use a light blue hook. This one. Do love my Knit Pro waves. So I just made this up from top to bottom. If ever you want some hints and tips about making crocheted beanies from the top down, I made a tutorial video or a recipe video about that a while back, which you'll find if you go and look in my playlists. There's not many tutorials, so it's easy to find. It's a little bit creased up, this. This yarn is quite floppy. I wasn't really sure, again, what I was going to make, but it's very floppy. It does make a nice fabric. And I think, again, oh, did I decide to use it inside out again? I think with this one, I decided to have the back of the crochet as the outside because it's more fluffy. And then just for the last couple of rounds, I used a smaller hook, a 6mm hook, just to kind of bring it in. Now, originally, my plan was to make this child-sized, and it ended up coming out to fit me. Didn't really want it to fit me because I thought it would make a more fun child's hat, but no. So when I finished that one, I still had a bunch of yarn left. And I started another hat, and so I got as far as here, and I made this circle, the flat circle, as the crown of the hat quite a bit smaller. I think at least an inch smaller. And I think I'm at the point now, if I can remember, where I've started to go straight. It looks like it's going to be this little mini beret at this point, doesn't it? Funny. So there's plenty of that yarn left. So I'll probably get a third hat out of it. We'll see. This bag's been great. It really is useful. Again, this is another of my tutorials. And I'm going to pack that away, take that back upstairs to the living room, and get on with that maybe tonight. So what else was I going to say? I'm really just squeezing this in before I go out with Mr. Stitches. He's working today, but we do have to take his car downtown to get an oil change done. And so I'm going to be going down in my car so I can drive him home afterwards. And he was just on a Teams meeting in the home office across the hall. And so when he's done with that, we'll be going out The boys looked after everything fine, except for that plant, which I think I mentioned earlier. While we were gone, I noticed that my youngest has been in my sewing room while I've been gone. He has all this fabric to make curtains for his room, which he went off and bought by himself. He used to work at Fabricland with me at the same time as I was there. He was working there as primarily a warehouse guy, but also he used to be out at the tables cutting as well. The only thing he did not learn when he was there was the cashiering, really. So I think that he's probably well educated in how much fabric to buy, although I think he probably erred on the side of too much rather than too little. And so he obviously got my machine out and threaded it up, because it's sitting out over there, my old mechanical, and he's got all the fabric piled on my armchair, which is why I'm not sitting there to talk to you. And actually, this is quite a good place to sit here and talk to you, because I can just set up the tripod on my sewing table right near the window, which is natural light, which is nice. So I'm going to ask him if he's been waiting for me to get back so that we can get the measurements sorted out together and figure out how he needs to cut it, and also how to sew on the pleater tape on the top. And then he'll have new light blocking curtains for his bedroom. I'm sure he's looking forward to that. So I have vacuumed in here, because before I went away, I left lots of bits on the floor as usual. And it's not too messy, but when I start my next project, I should probably just straighten a few things out. I am reminded that I am in the middle of that string piecing cushion cover project. Yep. And as I said, I want to do some sort of dodgy bag for the make along, or more than one. Multiple dodgy bags. And the other thing I was thinking of doing for this vlog, I'm not sure when I'm going to do that. What's the day today? It's only Tuesday today. So you're not expecting a vlog this soon in the week. I've got plenty of time to think about this. I'm going to do a yarn stash flash. At the beginning of the year, I was talking about using up my yarn stash as much as possible. And on my board up here, my little large write-on, wipe-off, dry erase board, I've written Road to Zero. And I don't think I'll ever get to zero, because it's nice to have some yarn, even if it's just a whole bunch of small pieces for making amigurumi or something. But I did a flash at the beginning of the year. The big round blanket that's on my armchair back there, I had laid all my yarn out and stood in the middle and filmed it all. I wish I had got some photos, actually, because it would have been nice to have flashed the stash on Ravelry as well in the thread that comes up every year, and I forgot. But I think what I need to do is get my remaining yarn out that I haven't burnt through in the last 4 months, and do a 4-month, what's the word I'm looking for? 4-month progress on using up the yarn stash. I think that would be fun, because I'm pretty sure I've made good progress on that. And there's not much left. I'm not going to do a fabric stash flash. Getting all of that out would be a pest. But I might get to it at some point. So I'm going to take a break here, and I will be coming back with that yarn flash at some point, and any other sewing that I maybe manage to do in the rest of the week. I've only got one shift this week. I was thinking, oh, that's nice. Manager hasn't scheduled me for today, because of course, when you're feeling a bit jet lagged, it's nice to have a bit of time off, or at least get the laundry done, which I have on day one. But there are no other shifts after tomorrow. So it looks like my entire work week this week is going to be 4 hours on Wednesday. I am not complaining. Means I can get some shopping done as well, and yeah, plan the meals and all that sort of thing. But there should be able to be. I'm going to leave some of these fluffs in because, you know, it's kind of nicer to have the flow than the jerky editing. And also you can see that I frequently forget the word for things or don't say things right the first time. There's definitely going to be some sewing as well, and probably some more crochet later in this video. And here we are, time for the 1/3 of a year stash flash. The yarn certainly takes up a lot less room on this blanket than it did a few months ago. Here's the Lion Brand Heartland that's left. We're going to do a 360. So there's the 2 Lion Brand yarns I did the reviews on that I have left. The Feels Like Cuddles and the Feels Like Sherpa. Drops Muscat. Scrubby dishcloth yarn and dishcloth cotton. A group of yarns that I dyed myself. Some drops Paris and drops saffron that are intended for dyeing, but I have had them in the stash for far too long. Need to do something with those. All my little sorted baggies of amigurumi cottons and cotton blends. Maybe some acrylics as well. I can't remember. Paintbox cotton. What's left of the bamboo pop. Can I remember what this is? I think it's yerbo cookie. And this is Barocco Comfort sock yarn from a whip that got frogged. This is a Universal Yarns Christmas. A little bit of Modern Cotton DK and some Super Saver and a very tiny ball of something, and I can't remember what that is. And then we're back to the Lion Brand Heartland again. That's it. That's the stash. Currently 2 whips on the go. And that is all. And I just found this little pile of acrylics. It's Knit Picks Brava worsted weight in this bag here. There's always stuff lurking somewhere else. Honestly, there really isn't room to move in the sewing room right now. Anyway, I just did the stash flash, which you will have seen because I will have inserted it just before this segment. Now the blanket's back on the armchair. But yeah, there's stuff everywhere. Not helped by the fact that my son has this huge amount of curtain fabric sitting in here. It's now Thursday. Yesterday I had a 4-hour shift. It was really nice to be back at work, actually. I did miss being there. They're a nice bunch of people. And so yesterday whizzed by, and by the time it got to 7:30, I was knackered. I suppose that it was the jet lag kicking in. Much as you think you can handle the time difference, yeah, it's always a little bit of a challenge, isn't it? So as I say, by 7:30, my eyes were drooping. So I went to get ready for bed, and I got into bed at 8 o'clock, and I had my phone with me and a book just in case I had the last little bit of energy to do anything, but I really didn't. So I think I was asleep very quickly after that. And I was awake at about 5:30 this morning. So I did get a good night's sleep though. So that was all right. And yeah, it's been a slow day today because I didn't have a deadline to do anything in particular. I did want to get some housework done. I did want to get some shopping done so there was more food in the house for the next week's meals. But there were long gaps in between the active parts because I was stuck into a book, which I'll tell you about in a minute. So I've got the scrapbook from my childhood on my lap and a couple of photographs, which I thought would give you a laugh. So this is me. Hopefully you can see it without any glare. Can you believe that's me? Let me see. How long ago was that? This was my sister's wedding day. I was matron of honor. It was 1989. So I would have been 27. 27. That's 35 years ago now. Oh, wow. I think I did my own makeup that day, but we did go to a hairdresser's in the morning to get our hair done. And of course, I had the fluffy pink dress on. I always remember telling my sister, you can put me in any colour but pink. And what did she do? She went for pink. But there were 3 very cute little bridesmaids who were my mum's neighbours at the time. And we did all look very, very sweet in our pink fluffy dresses with my sister getting married. Anyway, there's another rather cute picture of me and my sister. I'm the big sister in this one. Hopefully you can see that. Yeah, I'm the big sister. Of course, in those days, people did a lot of those formal types of photos. Doesn't happen so much these days, I don't think. My mum's written on the back that I was 37 months at the time, not 3, 37 months. And my sister was 17 months. 1965. Wow. So cute. So let's see, there was something I was going to show you out of the scrapbook. I don't think you need to see all the baby photographs. But I did find this, which had fallen out of the book. And it is a badge from Girl Guides. I wasn't in Girl Guides for very long. Here's the thing. I went into Brownies when I was primary school age. And I remember my mum used to be a helper as well. And so I remember some of the crafts that she used to help us with when we were in Brownies. And that was great. And I was pretty excited to go into Guides. When I got to about 10, I think you were supposed to move up to Guides. And I always thought it would be great because you could go camping and all sorts of fun things like that. Well, shortly after I joined the Guides, we went camping. I hated it so much. And I was a very shy child. I don't know if I really participated much in the activities. They probably had to push me into it. But I remember that it was in a field in the island where I grew up. And we had these massive tents where multiple people slept. You know, they were like group tents. We attempted to have a midnight feast one night in our tent, and I woke up the next morning with a very sticky sleeping bag because I think I had spilled lemonade on myself or something because I'd probably fallen back asleep really quickly. So much for that. And they had dug a trench in the field and put a little tent round it for the latrines. And yeah, I think I managed to pee that week, but certainly nothing else, if you know what I mean. Yeah, it was bad enough that I think I left the Guides shortly after that. It was like, I'm not doing that again. No way. Anyway, I did get some badges for various things. You know how you had to sort of gather badges to sew on your uniform when you were in the brownies, or you might have done sparks or whatever it was. I'm just trying to find the page where my mum stuck this in. Okay, I finally found the page where I have my little certificate to say that I was a brownie guide in 1970. So I would have been 8 then. And I have various badges here. There's one with a cup of tea, which is, I can't remember what I had to do for these badges. There's one that's got a bee on it. There's one that's got a pixie on it, because we used to get grouped into things like elves and pixies and imps, I think. And there's one, I have no idea what that is. But this one, I think there's a reason that this sewing one with the scissors on fell out of the book and presented itself to me. I think it needs to be attached to something that I keep. I'm going to sew it on. There's a reason why that one popped out and fell in my lap. It's quite an interesting browse in here, because it's got report cards from my dancing. I did ballet for a while. I never remember feeling comfortable in ballet class. I think it was just because I was so shy and self-conscious. I felt like I was a clunky, clumsy type of person, and I may not have been, but that's what I remember. So this thing is an ad for NatWest Bank. What was NatWest Bank in the day? And I'm in that picture. The person whose head you can see the back of, that's my dad. And the man who is sitting there with the glasses on, he was the manager of the NatWest Bank in Jersey at the time. Now this was probably, let's see, what school uniform am I wearing there? Aha. So I'm not sure how I managed to be featured in an advert in the local paper, but they obviously wanted to have a child who looked like they had drawn a picture of a house. And I don't think I drew the picture of the house. I may have done. Somebody else might have already done that ahead of time. But I found another paper here, which is more complete, which has the same ad in it. And that is from June 16th, 1970. So again, primary school days. And I remember doing that. So yeah, certificates for handwriting, which is pretty darned amazing, seeing as most of the time my report card said my handwriting was terrible. And bits from the local paper, because it's a small island. Obviously, there were fewer people there when I was small. It's probably busier now than it used to be. But local school results or dance results, like exam results, used to be published in the local paper. Funny looking back on these now. So that's enough waffling about that. So the book I showed you, the book I mentioned earlier that I have been stuck into for most of today is this one. It's Kristin Hannah, The Women. It was recommended to me by my friend Jane, and it is definitely worth a read. It's about a woman who lives in California with her wealthy family. Her brother signs up for the Navy to go and fight in the Vietnam War, set in the 60s. And she ends up signing up herself, but because she doesn't want to hang around and, oh, that's right, I think she needs more training. So she's trained as a nurse, but doesn't have any experience yet. And the Navy wouldn't take her. So she ended up signing up with the army and going out to Vietnam to be a nurse. And that's all I'm going to tell you, because I'll just say it's a really, really good read. And it's probably, you know, on a par with Jodi Picoult, which is high praise, in my opinion. So when I was out today doing my grocery shopping, I stopped in at the library to pick up one that I had ordered in as a hold. And it's another Kristin Hannah. So I'm hoping I'm going to enjoy that one too. And I can't remember what it's called. It's upstairs. This is the pile. I can't remember if I showed you this, but this is the pile of stuff that I brought back from my niece. She had given me all of her baby's onesies from when he was really small. And so when I was at my sister's, I just cut the usable stuff out of them all. I cut the tops and bottoms off them and any sleeves. So I was just left with the usable fabric from the body. And there's lots of them. This is kind of cute. It's a Tigger one. There's a couple of Christmassy ones. This is obviously a Rudolph one. So this pile of pieces is going to end up being a blanket. So what I'm going to have to try and decide is how I'm going to join the very different fabrics together, and also what I'm going to back them with. I think if I was to buy some micro chenille or minky, that would probably be the best bet, and I wouldn't have to put any batting in it then. I could just figure out how to sew the pieces together in as pleasing an arrangement as possible and then back it with the chenille. There was one of them I didn't want to cut into, which was this little suit here, because it's absolutely adorable, isn't it? And I thought, if you were just to take the arms and legs off, but leave the buttons and the collar on, it would make a great hot water bottle cover. So I may yet do that. Wouldn't it be fun to give it back to my little, what is he? He's my niece's son. So he's what, my great nephew? Yeah. So wouldn't it be funny to have his onesie go back to him, repurposed into something that he could still use? I think that would be lots of fun. Hello, it's Friday. This is my second time of recording this, because when I went to go and upload the clip to my editing software, it was not there. Friday morning, I got up super early this morning. I got lots done. It feels great. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do when I came down to my sewing room today, but what I ended up doing was a belt. I put on just a plain black t-shirt and these really wide leg black trousers / pants this morning, and tucked them in and thought, could do with something to bling it up a little bit. So I decided to go for a belt. I don't have as much waist as I used to. You know, a few years ago, pre-menopause and all that sort of thing, I had more of a defined waist. But oh well. So I pulled out this bit of fabric. Now this is something I bought ages ago, and you can see I've chopped a lot off of it now, because it used to be a long vest, and these were the armholes. It was a meter of fabric, and I just cut armholes in, didn't neaten the edges or anything. And I made quite a few of these. In fact, a lot of people at Fabricland, customers, used to buy fabric purely based on the fact that they saw me wearing one of these long vests. So I cut a 12-inch strip off the bottom of this today, and I used my serger to sew it into a tube and across the ends, and then flip it right side out. Just left a teeny little gap right at the back there for turning. And I have this round buckle, which is, there's no spike on it or anything. It's just a circle with a vertical bit of metal there. So I was able to sew one end of the fabric around this. I just tacked it down in 3 places because I didn't want to make it really flat here. I wanted the fabric to look a little pleated. It's super comfy. And I left it the width of fabric, so it hangs down a long way. I'm not sure about the hanging down a long way, but I don't know, we'll see. I'll see what my friends say later on. Yeah, I'm getting to the point in my life where I just want to be comfortable. And whilst I love wearing jeans, they do tend to feel a bit like a corset sometimes, don't they? I think the reason I tend to not wear too many just stretchy, baggy clothes is that I'm worried I'm going to expand outwards at a faster rate. Because at least when you're wearing something tighter, you're aware when you put on a pound or 2. Anywho, I'm happy with my new belt. And now I'm going to go and put this up on the computer and edit. Well, I think it's time for a tea break, so I'm about to head upstairs. But first, I wanted to show you this. Did I show you this? 3 guesses as to what you think it is. A friend of mine gave me a whole bunch of these large spools of thread that she had picked up, I think, at a thrift store, super cheap. And I've put some on my serger, and so I've got 4 different color ones in my serger, and I'm just using them up with anything. And I realized that if I wanted to use one of them with my regular sewing machine, that they weren't going to fit on the spindle thing at the top. So rather than buy a special piece of equipment from the nearest fabric store, which is actually quite a long way from me now, I put it in a mason jar, put a metal ruler on there, wrapped some garden wire around it, which is what I bought to make those COVID masks, because you needed the wire over the nose to pinch them over your nose. So this is garden wire, and then I made a loop at the top for the thread to go through. I haven't tested it out yet. What do you think? Do you think that's a good MacGyver? I've just spent the last half an hour, maybe not half an hour, I don't know. I wasn't timing myself, and I did end up hanging some towels out on the washing line partway through. So I don't know how long it took me, but I ironed all of these. I made sure the seams, the side seams are all cut apart, and I've ironed all the baby onesies. And now I've got to figure out how I'm going to make this blanket. I'm not sure whether to interface the pieces. So I did a test run with some medium weight woven fusible. It's probably not SF101, but it's the equivalent from Fabricland. So I have a couple of scrappy bits, and I also have a couple of bigger bits that I bought just to have in the stash, really, because, you know, you always need to have this sort of stuff lying around, don't you? And I fused it on the back of one of these pieces and then trimmed it. I thought it was probably a good idea. Looks like I've gone and fused a thread or a hair inside that one. Rats. Well, you can't see it from the right side, only from the interfacing side. What was I saying? I did the fusing before I did the neat cutting because I didn't want to cut the knit fabric and then fuse it and then have it get all out of shape. So I fused it, trimmed it to the maximum I could, but rounding to the nearest 1/2 inch. So this piece is 6.5 by 7. It's still got a nice bit of drape and quite a nice bit of weight to it. It's not crispy or anything. My main issue is that, I don't know, sometimes this fusible interfacing just doesn't fuse properly. One of those corners is lifting, but when it's sewn, I don't suppose it would matter too much. So I think what I'm going to do maybe is fuse them all to the interfacing. Before I go ahead with that, I am going to wait and see what you guys comment on that, because maybe you guys have made a t-shirt quilt before and you've used a stretch interfacing or a woven or a non-woven interfacing and it worked out well. Perhaps you can give me some advice on that. I'm not going to quilt it, I don't think. There's a good chance that I will tie the layers together with the backing. So it's not going to be machine quilted or anything. Actually, I lie. If I back it with a chenille, which is kind of stretchy, I would not attempt to machine quilt it. I would tie the layers. But if it is interfaced like this and the stretch is not going to be an issue, because obviously once you interface it, it should stay in the shape I make it, then I could use quilting cotton and quilt it. So yeah, let me know what you've done, how you liked it, whether it worked out, if it held up to use and washing. I think this video is getting to be pretty long now, so I think I'm going to put it up on the channel and get that done. And then anything I do over the weekend, I can put into the next video. I'm also thinking I should probably bake some cookies or something for my friends this afternoon. So I'm heading up to have a cup of coffee and bake cookies. Thanks as always for watching and listening to my rambles. And I'll see you again really soon. Bye for now.